And that giant cacophony tells you you're back with the Power of Three podcast. And as you may hear in the background, we're listening to that Scream of the Shalka mix. And every time I do that, I just want to wave my hands around like the titles do, and like pert wee bits, but wrong, in the wrong order, and upside down and back to front and spinning around. Anyway, that doesn't matter. We're not Kylie Minogue. We're not spinning around. We're the Power of Three podcast. And I am Kenny Smith. And here at my side, like a friendly little Highland goblin that you just want to pat in the head and ruffle his hair, it's Stevie Day. Hello, my happy little goblin.
Hello, Kenny. Wow, that took me totally by surprise there. I'm a happy little Scottish goblin. Hello, everyone. It's Stevie here. I'll just ruffle my hair for the YouTube viewers. You see, you almost hear it, can't you? Yeah. It's nice to have hair, isn't it, Kenny?
Yes. Well, I used to be. I remember it well. I mean, as thing, you hear about people with ghost limbs, former military people, and I have ghost hair because I still sometimes run my fingers over my forehead expecting to find my locks in a Hugh Grant floppy hairstyle, but there's nothing there. So
I still expect to look in a mirror and see a redhead. It's more kind of, I'm told, pepper. Distinguished silver, somebody said once.
Well, that's nice. Well, talking about your visage, we've actually had some correspondence because this is one of those rare episodes where we're actually recording just a couple of days before we drop the episode, because sometimes they can be recorded weeks and indeed months in advance. And on this occasion, we're doing a follow-up to last week's episode on Scream of the Shalka, which was great fun. That's Richard E. Grant animation. But we've had some correspondence since then, and one of them is from our erstwhile colleague, John Bolin. And John was saying, as well as being a conspicuously pretty face, I forgot how much of a technical wizard Stevie is. Fascinating commentary on the background wizardry of Flash animation. But he's not the only one who said that. We've also heard from Craig Brawley, one of our regular book readers and somebody who's listened to every single episode of The Power of Three. And Craig was saying last week he was listening to the Shalka episode, and regarding what you were saying, I enjoyed his explanation of Flash. I'd never really understood it before. So there you go, Stevie. You're taking the complex and making it simple. Next, we should get you to explain the ins and outs in time travel. But yeah, we'll not quite go there. We've
already done that, Kenny. Do you remember?
Oh, yes, we did. And then along came the silent.
Then you remembered.
Yeah, and then along came the silent. You should kill us all on sight.
What was that?
No idea.
Do you know, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but every time Moon Landing comes on in a proper frame on a film or a news report, and the three of us are watching, somebody will always say, that's one small step for man. You should kill us all on sight. It just happens in our household, no matter what it is, what the situation. That is now official canon.
Yep, in the Day household. My goodness, that is
scary.
Yeah, it's funny though how these things creep into our consciousness. I mean, sort of things like when anybody says I'm confused, and I just want to add, so's the TARDIS. In that classic Shada style. So, yeah, our other bit of correspondence before we move on is from one of our newer listeners who's on social media at Theatregoer, and his name is Kunmi. And huge thanks to Kunmi, because he always reposts our episodes with lovely comments and is enjoying what we're doing. So a huge thanks to you for doing that. And just regarding the Shalka episode, Neglected Doctor, Powerhouse Cast, Throwback 20 plus years, an episode to send you DVD hunting, learning Flash animation and archive creep, plus a text story, The Feast of the Stone to dig out if you haven't a Shalka pal. Play Out may push me back to her first LP, and that's a reference to Jerry Halliwell. Scream if you want to go Shalka, baby. Did you enjoy listening to that, Stevie? Bit of Jerry?
I did. It was the highlight of the end of the episode for me.
Apart from all our requests for help and anybody who wants to get in touch.
Yes. And people have got in touch, and that's great.
Absolutely. But nobody got in touch via the earth2podcast@gmail.com, and Peter will pass them on. So please do send your correspondence to him. So we mentioned there the Feast of the Stone, which was a text follow-up to Scream of the Shalka. But today we're talking about the unproduced sequel, Blood of the Robots. Now, before we mentioned this last week, Stevie, was this one that you were aware of in any way, shape or form?
No, not at all. It was a complete blank for me. So that passed me by. How public was it?
Not particularly. It took a while for it to become known. So, because we are who we are,
yep,
we want to know more.
We do.
And we've done a research this week because we have been having a look at parts of the Black Archive release on the Scream of the Shalka by John Arnold. We'll come back to that later on, which details the 6 episodes and the content of what would have been in Blood of the Robots. And better than that, Stevie, we've got an interview with the man who wrote the sequel.
Isn't it great?
It is.
So exciting.
Well, I hope so. Well, because we haven't heard him yet, but
it's going to be so exciting.
It is going to be very exciting, or it will have been very exciting, or it might have been, but will yet still be. My goodness, it's still getting wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Tell you what, shall I stop talking and we can hear from the man who wrote this story, Mr. Simon Clark?
Go for that.
I'm Simon Clark. I've been a professional writer since the early 1990s, but I've always wanted to be a writer ever since I was 4 or 5 years old. I wanted to make up stories, and a big part of that is Doctor Who. I watched the first episode back, obviously when it was first shown. I was probably about 4 or 5 years old, was hooked. And for some reason, the idea of stories embedded themselves in my head, and this is what I wanted to do. And, stories became my lifeblood, particularly Doctor Who style stories. And, as the years went on, this need, this craving to become a writer grew and grew, and eventually got the opportunity in the early 1990s to write full time. And I was basically writing novels like Blood Crazy, Nail by the Heart, Vampiric, writing horror novels. And then I had the opportunity to write a sequel to Day of the Triffids, which, the title perhaps isn't that surprising, Night of the Triffids. And that was eventually picked up by Big Finish for an full cast adaptation, 2012 or so.
That's quite scary to think it's that long ago. I remember listening to it with joy. Goodness, that's scary. But of course, you are a Doctor Who fan. You have got the right credentials and you can prove it.
Yes, well, it's family legend that I never actually missed an episode of Doctor Who from the very first episode. I always watched it, even if we were going on holiday. My father would drive faster and faster to make sure we reached the caravan in Cornwall in time. So often it could be like with 2 minutes to spare, driven all the way down from Yorkshire. Jumped out of the car, rushed into the caravan, switched on the television, which got a little black and white TV back then, and watched it. And I even left my wedding reception early to go watch a Colin Baker episode Doctor Who. So I didn't miss any episodes of Doctor Who. And in fact, again, it's the devotion to it. Actually, it was actually blowing a blizzard deep with snow, but my brother-in-law managed to get me through by car back home, so I could watch Doctor Who. So I don't know what the other people at the reception thought, but I got to see it. And this was the days before video recording, just before, about a year or so before video recording came in. So if I missed that episode of Doctor Who, it'd have gone into the ether, out into the universe, and I'd never see it again until, well, I believe I'd never see it again, but of course it would come back on DVD and so on later, but I couldn't miss it.
Definitely not. We've all had our moments of these things. I unfortunately did miss Castrovalva Part 1 because I had to go to a pantomime, but thankfully it did get repeated that summer, so phew, I made it.
That's something. I mean, again, to show, well, my devotion to Doctor Who when the Daleks were first shown back in the early 60s, I thought, I was only about 4 or 5 years old, I thought, wouldn't it be brilliant to have a Dalek? If I have a Dalek, I can take control of the hometown where I live, and I'll dominate it and rule it. You can see even then, probably at the age of 4, as a touch of megalomania there. So I wrote to the BBC saying, please send me a Dalek. And they wrote back saying, we haven't got any Daleks to spare, but they did send me a signed photograph by William Hartnell, which is a real treasure of mine. I think people will be familiar with the photograph. In fact, I'll hold it up to this camera for your YouTube channel viewers later. And it shows Doctor Who in inverted commas, William Hartnell stood there in what appears to be a junkyard with what looks to be like a furry fez and a scarf, and personally signed by William Hartnell. So that's an absolute treasure. So I'll continue holding that up at the camera for quite a while, so your viewers on YouTube can enjoy it.
You can hold that up for the next however long it takes. That just don't move your arm. But good man, that's it. You're holding it there.
I'll keep it very still.
Everyone can see that, which is great.
Cheers.
So of course, you got a professional commission to work for the show many years later, thanks to Telos Publishing.
Yes, I mean, Doctor Who had been out in the wilderness for a long time. They haven't shown any episodes. I don't know if they'd even repeated them on television. This is going back to the 1990s after, the Sylvester McCoy era. And basically, our screens went dark as far as Doctor Who was concerned. And it was the one-off McGann film that they made. But it was during this wilderness time that David Howe of Telos approached me and said, oh, would you like to write a Doctor Who novella? We publish a range of them. I said, oh, yeah, I've seen them. He said, Simon, I'd really love you to write a Doctor Who novella. Will you do it? And I said, no. I said, no, I can't. It's just going to be too daunting. What happens if I mess it up? And, Doctor Who's such an important thing in my life. I love watching it. Last thing I want to do is write a novella that somehow spoils it. Perhaps it was being a bit irrational on my point. From my point of view, but he persisted. He kept saying, whenever I met him at a convention, "Oh, Simon, will you write a Doctor Who novella?" And I'd say, "No." He'd email me, "Will you write a Doctor Who novella?" No. And then one day he said, "Would you like to write a Doctor Who novella?" And he says, "Before you say no, I think we've got the Daleks." I said, "What?" I said, "We've got permission to use the Daleks in a novella, and I'd like you to write a Doctor Who novella featuring the Daleks." And so I said, "Yes." I couldn't say no to that one. So, Doctor Who, and of course, love Doctor Who, and Daleks, love the Daleks, such a big thing in my life. So, yes, the Dalek Factor came to be. I wrote the novella, and just so pleased with how it went. I think the Doctor Who story was there, lodged deep in the atoms of my brain. It had been there for probably percolating round since I was 5 years old. The seeds of this story, and when I began writing it, just whooshed out of me, and I was just so pleased with it, and I was so pleased with what Telos did with the production. To produce a beautiful looking hardback book. It was such a thrill, and it actually made just Doctor Who wasn't being shown on the screens back then in the late 90s or so when the Dalek Factor came out. It made the national press. It said the Daleks are back. Simon Clarke writes a novella for Telos. Most readers think, who the heck's Simon Clarke? Who the heck's Telos? But we were there in national newspapers. We brought the Daleks back, and I think the public enjoyed, finding out the Daleks were back.
Yeah, with an indeterminate incarnation of the Doctor as well.
That's right. Yeah, we deliberately. I mean, probably in my mind, I was thinking, it's going to be something like Patrick Troughton, a doctor I grew up with, my formative years, when I was 8 years old and around about that age. So perhaps Patrick Troughton was in my mind to be the Doctor, but David Howe said, don't make it like a known Doctor. It's got to be some other incarnation, which, in theory, there could be a limitless number of incarnations. So we'll keep it ambiguous and leave the reader guessing. I mean, it could be, it could be Colin Baker, it could be Patrick Troughton, it could be, if anything, in retrospect, it almost seemed a little bit like the War Doctor, like the Hurt incarnation, even though that came much later. But when I've read the Dalek Factor back, in some ways it does seem to lean towards another incarnation, quite almost kind of a warrior Doctor.
Yeah. course, the book's called The Dalek Factor, which is a phrase from The Evil of the Daleks, which is a missing story from the BBC archive. So if you've seen every story, do you have a favourite that we cannot watch these days, a lost story?
Yeah, that's a point. I mean, really, at some point I should donate my brain to science, and hopefully they'll be able to extract all the stories I've seen. Because in theory, everything you see, you remember, don't you? So they should actually be able to excavate all these lost episodes. I think certainly I don't know if there would be lost ones, but certainly from, thinking back when I was 5, 6, 7, the Daleks were, absolutely the ones I adored.
Yeah.
And is it Power of the Daleks? That's a lost one, isn't it? I think we've got one episode surviving, is it?
None at all. All 6 episodes gone.
So I do vaguely remember that, and I vaguely remember when one of the Doctor's companions sacrifices herself by being sucked out into outer space. She was the one from ancient Athens, I believe.
Yeah, that's
I apologise, I've actually forgotten her name.
Dalek Master Plan. Yeah.
Oh, Dalek Master Plan. So I do remember, and I suppose because I was so young, I sort of remember it in bits now. I remember the Yeti in Snowdonia. Because then, back then, you completely believed it was Tibet. It was certainly, I remember the scary parts when I was about 5 or 6 years old, and remember flashes of the first episode I ever saw.
I'm so jealous that you've seen these things, and it's if only there was a way to, as you say, collectively extract all these memories from all the fans' brains who saw them first time around and somehow restore them to electronic moving pictures. But who knows? One day.
It must be that. Yeah, I mean, I hardly dare to utter the phrase AI, but I'm sure it's going to come. We'll see all the lost Doctor Who's again.
One day, hopefully in a good quality as well. So.
Absolutely, yes.
Yep. So then, of course, in 2002, 2003, BBCi, as they were known then, were working with a new Doctor, Richard E. Grant, playing this new incarnation. So when did you first hear about it, and what was your reaction and being contacted at first?
Yeah, it would be a bit bizarre. Again, it's over 20 years ago, so it's a case of trying to dredge back into my memory, and unfortunately, a lot of the things that were on old computers have vanished. The old computers have gone. I've still got probably floppy disks with things on, but there's no way of accessing the floppy disks for me. I could probably go to a computer store and get it done, but a lot of the material from back then's vanished. But yeah, I mean, with regard to what started with the Scream of the Shalka, and what's described as, is it going to be shown online rather than TV? It's going to be one of the first internet TV series. I like to think the sequence of events, I may well misremember, but I think I heard about Scream of the Shalka news that Doctor Who was coming back, but in a different form, in an animated form, and it would be online. And I was thinking, that's great, that'll be interesting. I'll watch that because I've just got a computer that could access the internet. So I thought, job done, I'll be watching that. And I thought that's it, I'll just be a viewer. And then John Ainsworth from Big Finish contacted me and said, you might have heard about, what's happening, the BBC are bringing back Doctor Who with Richard E. Grant. And I said, yeah, because I'd been here, again, I'm probably going to deviate a little bit now, but with I'd heard from John Ainsworth before I'd been in touch, and it must have been through the Dalek Factor. I think he interviewed me online. So I knew John Ainsworth through online via email. And he wrote out of the blue saying, this was going back. Would you be interested in pitching an idea for the sequel to Scream of the Shalka? And this time there was none of my saying, no, I can't do it. I said, yes, I'll pitch an idea. And, I think it began with just writing not even a one-page idea, like a half-page idea. Sent it to John. And I think, to cut a long story short, because I think other people were pitching ideas as well, I think it was almost like a bit of an X Factor setup where, a lot of people were sending in competing ideas. But long story short, mine was picked, wrote a treatment, went to contract, but everything started moving, and that had to be one of the most exciting times of my life. I was finally, writing Doctor Who stories, which would be a Doctor Who story which would be seen by other people. This was a childhood dream come true. It was just so amazing. I can't even describe how amazing it was, but I think something nuclear happened inside my head, and I think I probably just dematerialized in some way for several minutes and shot around the universe before regathering myself and thinking, oh my God, I'm going to write a Doctor Who story. When we went to contract, started writing the episodes, and it all started coming together. It's going to be 15-minute episodes with Richard E. Grant. The master is going to be Derek Jacobi, which I think if anybody's seen Scream of the Shalka, they'll know the setup for it. I mean, it's because it's available on DVD now, and written, wonderfully by Paul Cornell. Like I say, just a dream come true. I was just floating on cloud nine and beyond. I was up there in the cosmos. As far as excitement was concerned. I mean, just the thing of writing a script, and when you type the word doctor, and then what the doctor will say. I kept having to think, well, I'm actually doing this now. I'm putting words into the doctor's mouth. I'm having him say things, and again, that sense of great responsibility came back to me. I can't have him saying anything banal. It felt as though every word had to be significant and mean something, and have power. And have that Doctor Who resonance. That Doctor Who magic. So, a magical experience.
Yeah, I mean, given that Paul wrote such a strong, fully formed character for the Doctor, the fact that he starts off in Scream of the Shalka, very like he does in Rose. He's not happy, he's all on his own and doesn't particularly want company, and then bit by bit he gets worn down by this contemporary young woman from Earth who's got a bit of a useless boyfriend, and a place that's important to her gets blown up. You think, this is all very, very familiar, Russell T Davies.
Yes. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, Paul's story, was my guide, and because he'd created this new Doctor. Well, it was going to be the 9th Doctor, wasn't it, with Richard E. Grant? So that was a tremendous guide for me, and for continuing, the Doctor, the new incarnation of the Doctor, which was so useful. But yes, I mean, the Doctor in Scream of the Shalka is quite a gloomy, tortured character, at least initially, and perhaps he needs the danger and the horror of it all actually to come back to life again. I think he needs to feed on that danger and that sense that he's got to save other people in order to perhaps save himself. Yeah.
So what can you tell us about the storyline? Because you've been very kindly sent me some outline stuff. So what can you tell us about Blood of the Robots for those who don't know?
It harks back to almost like to the Daleks in a sense. I love robots. I know the Daleks, strictly speaking, aren't really robots, but robot-like. And so I thought it'd be a great idea to bring robots in. And John Ainsworth agreed. He said, well, when it comes to animation, it's probably going to be easier to animate a lot of robots and a lot of human beings. And that would give the animators scope to create all different kinds of robots. So rather than in 1,000 robots that all look the same, I'd have a million robots and they'd all look different, which would have been quite a task for the animator. But basically the idea is there's a planet called Verada, and it's become a dumping ground for old robots, for obsolete robots who aren't wanted anymore. They don't function properly. It's just a huge planet-wide scrap heap. The people who originally owned the robots loved them and cared for them. And they're told, perhaps in a quite sinister way, saying, don't worry, your robot doesn't work properly anymore. Replace it, get the new robot, get the new model. We'll take the old robot away, and the old robots will be lovingly cared for in this other world. They'll be happy there. They'll be, they can just live a peaceful life in robotic retirement. In reality, they're just put into hoppers and then dumped on this planet, millions and millions of them. So we have all these millions of robots, all in various states of disrepair. Some don't work at all. Some are 99% functional. And the ones that are functional, make friends with other robots, and they think, well, this is our new life here. Okay, we're on this desert planet. It's not wonderful, but it's okay for us. We're robots. We don't have to eat and drink. The weather doesn't bother us. The hot sun doesn't bother us. We'll form communities and we'll live peaceful lives. But into this then comes the scavengers, the people who are recycling the robots. Because now it's discovered that the robots are very valuable, even the old scrap ones. They can be collected up, taken away, melted down. So, into this scene of a desert world with all these masses of robots, some rusting in the sand, some still trotting about. We get these scavenger machines swooping out of the sky with big pincers, grabbing the robots and taking them off to be recycled, which then raises a question, is this cruel? Are these robots actually sentient? Could be considered living things? And here they are, they're being taken away to be effectively killed and destroyed. And into this situation comes the Doctor. And again, he's plunged into this a dangerous situation, where he's got to make decisions. He's going to be looking at these robots and he's going to be seeing them as viable, in a sense, living creatures with minds and, if not physical hearts, emotional hearts. They form friendships and relationships, these robots. They want to live. And so that's where then the story begins to develop. What will the Doctor do? Can he save the robots? Can he bring some kind of resolution about where, they can continue to live in peaceful retirement? But of course, as ever with the Doctor Who story, the course of it doesn't run easily, and there's lots of obstacles in the Doctor's way.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a bit of commentary in there in the way that we treat older people in our society as well.
I guess so, yes. I think that does come through. Do you consign people to a kind of scrap heap, or do you create an environment for people where they can live out their lives and simply enjoy themselves, and to have a rewarding life? Same with the robots. We're heading that way now with our AI computers and televisions, and they're gaining intelligence. Will it be cruel for us to throw an old television away in order to replace it? It's got the AI mind in there. I've just come back from Los Angeles, and it was like traveling into the future. I felt as though I got into the TARDIS and traveled 20 years into the future, because there were robot taxis there that drove themselves. People just simply got into the back of the taxi, and off the taxi went through busy traffic. And it's the first time I've seen that. Yeah. And I looked at it in amazement. I thought, well, there's nobody driving the car. It's a robot. The robots have arrived.
It's very Total Recall and Johnny Cabs on Mars.
Oh yes, yeah. It's like the future's here. It's arrived, and there were on the sidewalks there were little robots trundling along. It actually amused me, because one of the robots in Blood of the Robots is quite a small friendly robot, almost like an R2D2 size. And you see these little robots trundling around Los Angeles around the pavements, making deliveries. And if they encounter somebody, they stop and then they trundle on again. I thought, well, it's almost like Blood of the Robots has come to life here. There's all these robots and robot taxis, robot delivery systems. These little carts trundle along by themselves.
Of course, you're well known as a horror writer, and there was quite a lot of dark stuff in Blood of the Robots as well, because I just seen one of the online features that the SFX did, saying that there would have been salvage squads were going to hunt the robots to make room for human settlers forced to migrate from their dangerously overcrowded home planet as well. And that's such a dark element as well.
Yeah, again, it's one of these things where people compete for living space, and I suppose that's a big thing in history, where somebody from another country, from going back thousands of years, will tell that this is a good place to live. There's a nice river. They've come down from the mountains, nice river. We can do our fishing here and our hunting. But there's already people there, and the people there say, well, this is ours, and and then before long there's a huge conflict erupts. And it seems with this will continue, and with Blood of the Robots, it's a case of human beings desperately need this planet to settle and to irrigate and to make habitable. But the robots are already there, and most very passive robots. I won't give too much away in case Blood of the Robots resurfaces at some point. But there are some robots saying, well, we shouldn't take this. We're going to fight back. There's some settlement camps already started. There's some settlers here already doing the preliminary work. But they're going to push us out. This is our land. So the more aggressive robots then start forming into warrior bands and attack. And one thing occurred to me, because the actual presentation of Blood of the Robots and Shalka was so revolutionary. Back then, you wouldn't have been able to see these programs on your television because they didn't have Wi-Fi. They weren't hooked up to the internet. And you wouldn't have been able to see them on your phones because the phones weren't developed to that extent. Really, the only way you would have been able to see Scream of the Shalka and Blood of the Robots would be on your computer. Because you sat facing your screen, you're quite close. There could be things I could do. You use techniques which would be quite shocking because somebody would be quite close to the screen. So I actually came up with some ideas for jump scares where, somebody would be like, there'd be a window covered with curtains and they'd hear something outside and they'd pull back the curtain and a robot's face, one of the aggressive ones, would thrust through the glass right at them. So they'd be showered with the glass and the face would come right up into close-up. And I thought, anybody watching that on the computer screen, it would be quite a shock. I like that. Just the horror writer in me that you're causing, wanting to scare people. But I thought, there'll be some opportunities to be, have some quite frightening scenes, but without overdoing it. I mean, there's a lot of robots being dismembered, but again, we could say, well, that's not flesh and blood being dismembered, it's machinery being dismembered, like in a scrapyard. So even though in one level it could look a little bit gruesome that a robot's being cut to pieces, it's not flesh and blood that's being cut to pieces. So, I think that would be okay, to show that.
Yeah, and you had some fun in there as well, without going into too many details, but the funeral bot.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I thought we could have some amusing things. I mean, because the idea is that the robots are sent to Varada, to this huge dump it site. They become faulty and they can't be repaired. And so I came up with the idea of the funeral bot. And the idea was a funeral bot would go into the graveyard with the mourners. He'd be carrying the coffin and it'd very, in a very dignified and respectful way, lower the coffin into the grave. But a little bit of Robot Wars came into my head. Well, it'd have a pneumatic flipper, which would be regulated to just ease the coffin into the grave. I have a little flashback scene with a funeral bot, and it's developed a fault. And of course, it flips the coffin at great speed, miles away into the distance, so that the mourners stand there in horror watching the poor dear departed uncle or whatever it was, vanish over the rooftops into the distance. And I thought that would be just a nice little comedy scene. Yep.
There's something wonderfully dark and very macabre about that. I love it. That's very much my sense of humour.
Thank you. That's certainly the horror writer in me coming out from writing all these gruesome stories of haunted graveyards and things creeping out of tombs. That certainly came back to me when I was writing Blood of the Robots.
Yeah, and of course Russell T Davies was very rude and brought Doctor Who back onto the TV, which unfortunately led to the cancellation of all the future animations. But you'd got quite far into this. I believe you'd got the completed storyline and had 3 scripts ready.
That's right. Yeah, the storyline was complete, which was a very detailed one, and was basically the entire scripts without any dialogue. And then I did write the three scripts. I completed 3 scripts, and I heard that it was going to be cancelled. A horrible word.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was one of these odd things. It was wonderful. Doctor Who's going back, and then I heard, because the live action Doctor Who's going back, we're not going to go take Blood of the Robots any further, which was obviously a massive disappointment. But it was an odd thing. As one side of me was happy, the other side was disappointed. Blood of the Robots wasn't going ahead. But obviously loved Doctor Who, and it was great to see it back. And I can't say when the live action one came back, and I was watching the first episode. I wasn't grieving over Blood of the Robots. I was just enjoying Doctor Who again. It's one of these things, and I got the opportunity for at least a while to be writing Doctor Who scripts.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it would have been a gem, because I know that the dark humour sounds completely up my street. But at least we know that The Doctor is canonical, given that he appeared in a photograph in one of Shooty's episodes, so it could well have still happened.
Yes. In another universe, I think it did.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was great to be involved with it, and it was just so enjoyable. And then also, I'm so thankful to have dipped into the world of Doctor Who every now and again with the Dalek Factor, Doomsday, which I wrote an episode for Big Finish, and slightly off at a bit of a tangent. I mean, I've written Blake 7, so again, I'm there with Terry Nation's creation, and also wrote several episodes of Survivors for Big Finish. Again, a huge favourite, and again, a Terry Nation creation. So I can tick those boxes of the dreams come true. So I was so pleased.
Now, Simon, you just mentioned that you are recently returned from the LA. Could you tell us what you've been doing out there? Because I'm very jealous.
All right, yes, I'll be. Yes, my first time back in LA in over 20 years. The reason I was in Los Angeles was to see a film. It was a cast and crew screening of a film I'd written. I've never written any more film scripts before. The film's called The Protos Experiment, and it's out now. And that was a massive experience writing that. And I have to thank Big Finish, particularly John Ainsworth, for persuading me to write the scripts for The Night of the Triffids, because I'd never written scripts before. John said, will you adapt The Night of the Triffids for Big Finish? Again, a wonderful experience. I did that. And if I hadn't written those scripts, I don't think I would have had the confidence to tackle a film script. I wrote several things for Big Finish, as I mentioned, Survivors and so on. And I thought 3 or 4 years ago, I'll write a film script. I've got the confidence to do it now, thanks to John Ainsworth and Big Finish. I'll write a film script. That got picked up and it was made into a film. So, the Protos Experiment now exists and it's out there. And again, it's a wonderful experience. And I think anybody who's seen the Protos Experiment will see, that my interest in Doctor Who from an early age is filtered through into that. So it's a dystopian science fiction story, which could have easily accommodated, I guess, the Doctor. But it's a story set in a futuristic prison, or a prison of the near future, where the inmates have their memories, shall we say, modified, and then they are put through several extreme experiments to see if these modifications remain binding inside their heads. So it's quite a gruesome, horrific tale set in various places in Los Angeles, especially the desert areas and the mountains, various old mine workings. It's one of these funny things when I've written Big Finish scripts, and I've been so fortunate to be able to go along to recordings. You see the actors not just reading the scripts but performing them and really giving it their all. And really act it out what's being said. Of course, we don't see that because it's all audio, but trust me, the actors really do give everything for the performance. And so, that's great. I've got some expertise there. Now I'll write a film script, and so I wrote all these dramatic scenes with characters being attacked, characters being thrown about, characters being held around rooms. And I thought, this is great. Yeah, just writing this. And then when I was told that the film was going to be made, I suddenly woke up in the middle of the night and I thought, actually, I've got actors being, thrown about rooms and attacked, and they might get hurt. And I realised that written a script where real people are being attacked. And perhaps it was quite irrational on my part, from my point of view. But I thought, this is going to be dangerous. What happens if actors get hurt? It'd be all my fault, I've inflicted this on them. And so I was talking to this about a very Zoom call to the directors and said, I'm a bit alarmed here. I've got an actor going down into a tunnel underground, old mine workings. And it could be dangerous. They said, don't worry, we've got it covered. There's health and safety, there's stunt people. Don't worry about that side of things. I still worried a little bit, but so I got the opportunity to go to Los Angeles, see the film in a Hollywood cinema with the actors there, and got a chance to meet them. It was a marvelous experience, and again I can trace that back not just a big finish. I can trace it all the way back to being a 4-year-old kid, being told by my sister saying, "Oh, there's a science fiction story starting on television in a few minutes." It's the kind of thing you like, isn't it? They said, "Oh yeah, I'll go watch it." So, there's a 4-year-old running into the house, switching on the TV, and then seeing something called Doctor Who appear on screen and being captivated by it. And that's, the seed was planted there, which then eventually led to me becoming a writer, writing novels, eventually then being writing for Big Finish, and then having the confidence to write a film script. And I could see the unbroken line all the way back from the Protos experiment to me being a little kid with grubby knees and sitting on the sofa with a bottle of pop, excitedly watching that first episode of Doctor Who.
That's amazing. I just had a quick look and see that you've got an IMDb rating of 4.4 out of 5 for it.
Right. Oh, I've not checked that. I'll have to take a look. Thanks very much for that, Kenny. I'll see that. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, it's from user reviews. So there you go. That's not a bad thing to have. So yeah. So what else are you working on at the moment? Have you got another book on the way?
Yeah, I'm working on my second novel back in the mid-90s called Blood Crazy. Basically, the idea is that something strange happens one night and everybody over the age of 19 turns into deranged murderers and attack. It's quite gruesome. Attack young people. I won't go into too much gruesome detail. But basically, the civilization collapses because adults have become mentally transformed. And only the children and teenagers remain sane, and they've got to find a safe place to live and basically survive in this hostile world. Blood Crazy really took off in a big way, was translated into lots of different languages, was optioned for a film but was never made. And then a few years ago I thought, well, this story stayed with me. I thought, well, I'll write a sequel to Blood Crazy, to my own novel. So I've written a couple of sequels now, and they've done really well, and now I'm working on a fourth one. And I'm just so pleased to be working on those novels again, and so pleased with the response. I mean, the response for the first Blood Crazy would just amaze me. I thought, I'll obviously I want to write a novel that people enjoy. I've had people coming up to me and saying, this book changed my life. I see things differently now. And I thought, again, that just feels such a big responsibility to write something that has such a profound effect on people, and I never expected that to happen. So perhaps that was daunting, to actually write a sequel to a book that's had such a big impact on people's lives. So I postponed that for over 20 years before writing the sequel, but now I'm back into writing an entire series of Blood Crazy novels, and I'm thrilled by it. They're being published by Darkness Visible, readily available from the usual places.
Yes, all good bookstores.
Ebook and paperback. But yeah, it's been a thrill to continue that story.
That's fantastic. So I'm looking forward to it. Well, firstly, many thanks for taking time to talk about your Doctor Who love and Blood of the Robots, and good luck with the Protos experiment. Look forward to it. I'm going to try and track it down, find out where I can see it legally, of course.
Yes. Yeah, again, the quite the usual streaming services. Oh, well, thank you for having me, Kenny, and thank you for inviting me to take part. I've really enjoyed talking about Doctor Who. I mean, I can talk about Doctor Who until, from sunrise till sunset quite happily.
Yeah, until the cows are brutally massacred, knowing what you're like with your horror writing.
That's right, yes, no doubt.
Thank you once again. Cheers.
Oh, thank you, Kenny. Thank you.
Oh, you can put the Hartnell picture down now.
Okay, thank you. I'll do that. My arm is starting to ache. Yeah. Cheers.
Well, there we go, Stevie. Interesting stuff from Simon, was it not?
Absolutely fascinating. What an interview. Well, no, really genuinely nice guy. Lots of information. I mean,
yeah.
You pull people in from all kinds of places with your little black book, and sometimes I don't know who they are. But then you get drawn in and you listen, and the passion for Doctor Who and other things just flows out of them. I mean, no, it's just a cracking little interview there.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating sort of just to hear his background as a fan, the fact that he's been there since day one.
Yeah.
God, I'd love to be able to sort of take those memories of missing episodes and pull them out and put them on the screen.
Well, yeah, I mean, that whole conversation about AI, will it be able to, Well, I mean, effectively, be able to go into your brain, get your images, and bung them back out for somebody else to watch. I mean, it's science fiction, but really, is it? I also found the fact that that this was his childhood dream to be able to write for Doctor Who, and I suppose for a lot of us, deep down, especially those who write, it is a childhood dream, isn't it? To not just to write something for fun or for a school or a college or something like that, but actually say, right, I've written this and it's official and it's canon.
Yeah.
That must be, and how many other people are like that back then and did it, or even now, and one day will.
Yeah, well, you listen to our book club episodes and then you get every week, and we're getting people who had that dream when they were wee and they got to live it, and always delighted for them and not at all envious. I mean, I feel lucky that I get to interview the people who made them and still do, obviously, for Big Finish and in Vortex every month, available at www.bigfinish.com/Vortex. With a new issue out this coming week, actually. So, woohoo!
But it's the skill, isn't it, that somebody like that who is a childhood fan can go and write something that we all then enjoy.
Yeah.
And, and you don't pick holes in it, and it's kind of like, oh, we like this. Mm-hmm. It's great.
It is. I mean, the whole notion of a second story for the Shalka Doctor, or Richard E., whatever we wish to call him, it all stems back to the original commissioning, because it's in the documentary that's on the screen of the Shalka disc that they were going to do 12 episodes.
Yep.
And I think it was 3 runs of 4, but ultimately they consolidated and just did 6 on Shalka, and this would have been the second production block. And it's a very interesting story, the fact you've got robots which are being humanized and then hunted down.
Yeah.
Because I'm not aware if you've heard it or not, Stevie, but Big Finish did a story called The Cannibalists, which had robots hunting robots. And it had Phil Jupitus playing a lovable robot, and the bad guys were led by Phil Davis. And it's a fascinating listen. It's very good fun.
Sounds good. I mean, it's one of these stories that you get, especially in short stories. I can't remember the author. It's not an unusual concept, turning it on its head instead of robots hunting humans, and it's humans hunting robots. But I did find this just followed on from the Shalka stuff. I mean, completely different, apart from you've got the three common characters. But even reading the breakdown, you could hear the voices, you could feel the pace.
Yes.
And actually, well, I don't want to begin with the end, but I mean, the end is quite disturbing, shocking, and sad. Yeah. And it's not every day a bit of an episode breakdown can do that to me. I'm sitting there thinking, oh wow, there's an ending.
Yes, it most definitely is. Yeah. Before we get into it, let's I know exactly what you mean. Let's build up to it again and go back to the start, because it opens with a robot being pursued across a planet, and as we said, planet Varada, not to be confused with Varada Sethu, is Vorada.
Yeah, I know, but that's not what I was reading every time. I was thinking Planet Belinda.
That's exactly where I'm going.
And I was having those robots in my brain as well.
Yeah, it's Miss Belinda Chandra Planet. Yes, and and it's one you can imagine very easily. I mean, it builds up to the doomed robot fills the screen, then vanishes. Crunching metal, the robot screams and screams, and the scream transmutes into Doctor Who theme music, which is great.
Yeah. I mean, what an opening. And again, I think it's like what I said about Shalka. Translate that into full motion video, that's tricky. But I'm thinking the animation for this, I can almost see it in my head, how they were going to do it. And it just translates beautifully into that same opening sequence as well.
Yeah, I'm seeing it almost like from the robot's point of view, that sort of like seeing like the screen, sort of like his vision then goes a shade of red, and then it goes into static, and then squish, and then up come the titles.
Hang on, well, I'll just get my green crayon out and start crazy.
Well, get your flash animation out.
Oh dear, that would require. Sorry, Archive Creep people. That would require a virtual machine running Windows 95, NT4, a 98, or ME. if you remember that one.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
I think I could cope with Flash. I'm not sure I could cope with Windows Millennium again.
Oh, no. Well, until last year at work, we were running our website on Windows 7.
Well, that was good.
Yeah, but it's not the best thing, particularly when our backup drive crashed and then there was like, pants. We need to get a new one, so our new website is built on current machines.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, this is not the Kenny's Work Windows 7 podcast. Let's move back to Blood of the Robots. I like the fact that when it begins, the first scene we get is in the TARDIS, and it's in the Doctor's wine cellar as he's showing off to Alison and with the Master.
Yeah.
And it's very, very good. But there's the wonderful bit, the Master sniffs disdainfully. Adequate. Ah, but I see you have a perfectly charming Amontillado. Although one would prefer it stored in a cask rather than a bottle. It's as much the piquancy of the wooden barrel as the quality of the Palomino grape that yields such a unique flavour. I can just, Derek Jacobi doing that would just, brilliant.
Sorry, I thought it was there. I thought it was sorry.
Cheeky monkey.
No, I mean, it just sets the scene beautifully. And like a traditional adventure, you start off with robots screaming and robot blood spurting everywhere, and you go into the kitchen. In this case, the wine cellar. You pace it down a bit, and then it gives us the chance to get to know these characters. Or if you've missed Shalka, you can just go straight in with the characters.
Yeah, and the fact that there's the friendly wind-up relationship between the Doctor and the Master is great.
Yeah,
I think there's when they land on the planet, the Master is appalled. For once, my dear Doctor, I am profoundly grateful that I am unable to leave the TARDIS, for that is an unforgiving and desolate place in extremis. Alison, so you've never seen Stockport on a wet Sunday in March then? Just think, this is so absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
And it's very much that banter that we would get in the TV show when it came back as well. It's absolutely perfect. It feels very 21st century.
Yeah, it's very fresh. I mean, you could do that now, I think, and it would still just stand up. Mm-hmm. And that joke would still stand up.
Yeah.
I mean, you could replace it with a variety of different towns throughout the United Kingdom.
Yes, absolutely. You could say it was Dundee. But no, I think, it builds up. We do get the Doctor and Alison getting to meet different robots. There's Gobble, the quarry bot.
Yeah.
And there's Hospodar, who was previously a window cleaner bot. And it's just, there's all these anthropomorphization of the robot. No, that only counts as animals. Well, the humanization of the robots.
Yeah.
And very much recognizable characteristics to them. And then, of course, we discover that they're being hunted by the humans when, as it says here, see, Doctor, there is hope for the future. All we need is to be left in peace.
It's a nice twist, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a nice twist for humans to be hunting robots.
Oh, because they want the land back.
The land and the metals. Because they grind them down to have the metals for Homeworld, wherever Homeworld happens to be. But yeah, I think the humanization of the robots is clever. I was getting a wee bit of Black Hole.
Oh, yes, of course.
Vincent and Old Bob, that kind of thing. And, if robots are purely mechanical and have no personality, it's difficult to work it out. But, I mean, same Star Wars with R2-D2. I mean, all he does is bleep. But you care when he gets blown up.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as we go by, it's building up that we're getting so used to the robots and they're very, very likeable.
Yep.
And it's quite hard to sort of dislike them. And at the same time, there's an awful lot of, I suppose, reading it in the age in which we're living today, parallels going on with the real world, which we don't want to go into, but it makes for uncomfortable reading.
It does, and I think here's my tech corner for this one, and it's quite a big thing for me. It's they talk about it in here, AI, artificial intelligence or machine learning, whatever you want to call it. It's at the point, however you want to pretend to understand it, it's at the point that a machine will have a conversation with you and you have a conversation with it, and that you start to regard it as a living thing within your household.
Mhm.
Now you can work it out and say, well, I have a conversation with my television and it recommends this and wishes me good night eventually, and it does this and does that, and then your television breaks, or you're getting rid of it. And some people at this point will say, oh, it doesn't matter. But it's a bit like, for me, saying goodbye to a car that's kept you safe for 20 years.
Mhm.
You've really run it to the end. But, you feel sad when the car's gone. But how is this going to affect us with AI, where you've got a house assistant that has become like a pet?
Yeah, I mean, I know that. And I usually say good morning to my Alexa. And good morning, Kenny. Would you like the weather for today? It's like, yes, please. That sort of thing. So it's, and it does become sort of part of your routine. And I always do say thank you to her.
But I mean, you've seen the movie AI.
Oh, God, don't. I hate that film. Haley Joel Osment. It's so annoying. I wanted that kid to be ground down into little parts.
Okay, let's ignore him, but let's concentrate on the bear.
Yes, the bear was good.
The bear was good. But if that is your childhood bear and then it stops working one day, or you're told to get rid of it, but it has an intelligence, when is something alive and when isn't it? And I think this is what this was trying to say as well. You humanize something so much, and then somebody decides to get rid of it. And the conflict that will cause in the future with the human race about whether we decide something is sentient or not. So big ticket items within this one, quite deep, I think.
Yeah, I think Simon's done a great job on that. Sort of, it does get you to think, and I'm quite, it's interesting because I mean, there's the bit. I think it's in episode 3. It's pointed out that a robot feels no pain in capital letters, which is something which has been sort of in debates and made its way into student exam papers. But as I say, rare metals in the robot bodies will be recycled into terraform machinery, as there aren't enough reserves on home planet. So it's tough stuff.
Now, the interesting thing about the pain thing is that when you ask a computer a question, especially when it becomes intelligent, it may not feel pain, but does it not like getting something wrong? So it metaphorically kicks itself, or it mentally degrades itself in order to answer it correctly each time. But, are you creating something that's not a physical pain, but a mental pain? And that affects the decision process of a machine learning, and it may start lying to you because it thinks that's what you want to know. So, it gets terribly complicated. What is pain? That's another podcast that we'll branch off on.
Yes, that will be coming soon. We'll also go with our Hadaway podcast, the What is Love podcast. For all of you who like that song from 1993. At first I thought I was saying, what is love, baby John Pertwee, no more. But anyway, moving swiftly on. I think that what we get here in this breakdown is these are 6 very, very short but absolutely cram-packed episodes. So much to fit in there, and you read it, when you read these synopses, you just think, how on earth would they have got that down into 10 minutes? Because there's so much going on. The fact that the Doctor and the Master dynamic is there, that the Master pushing back against being a robot, and there's a lot of conflict for him there as well.
Yeah, there's a huge amount, and when you think that he's actually going to go bad, he's going to take the TARDIS away, Asphodor whispering sweet nothings into his ear, trying to get him to rebel. It's a fascinating thing. And then, of course, you've got the twist when he decides, oh, no, this isn't what I want to do, which is very unmaster-like, but very machine-like. But no, I agree with you. I was surprised how much detail there was in there. I could see that, yes, you do your 6 10-minute episodes, and then a book comes out and expands upon that, as with many Who things. But this read to me more like you could fit this into a 6-partner Pertwee story type of thing. I could see it being expanded to do that. I know 6-partners are kind of frowned on these days, but that's what I was kind of getting, that the length. And I don't know. It'd be interesting. Is there a breakdown of Shalka in this form?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because if we could get hold of a breakdown of Shalka to compare it to what actually came out, I suppose that might give us an idea of how you shoehorn everything in. That might be fascinating reverse engineering.
Yeah, that would be a really interesting read. Just interesting when you're talking about Pertwee six-parters there. There's something very Malcolm Hulk-like about this. The fact that you've got that very human element there, even though it's, inverted commas, just robots. And it does have that sort of very human feel to it, and there's so much packed into there and on so many different levels as well.
Yeah, I think, I can't remember what I was reading, but, the human condition, I suppose that's where Star Trek, won out in a lot of its episodes, because it was looking at the human condition. What are we thinking, and relating it to current day events. And I suppose this is because you could take the robots into something else. You could have humans versus humans. You could have genders versus genders, or religions versus religions. Even it's looking at that. And just to go slightly off topic, I read an interview where people were saying that the last two series of Doctor Who were too political and very this and very that. And somebody had said, well, look at Doctor Who in the 70s. Talking about oil, talking about governments and politics. There's no difference here, except we've got the internet now to people to go, oh, well, that's not right. But ever was it thus? And this is just another great example of that human element that makes the story. I think when you forget the human element and how it relates, not necessarily a message, because we've all had those messages in certain series rammed down our throats. It's all your fault because you never cleared up the oceans. Well, thanks, we know that. So the message is there, and it's nicely done. It's not ramming it down my throat. It's a kind of like, especially, and I keep coming back to it, and we'll come to it eventually, the end. Because you got to think, not everything's black and white.
Yeah, go back here. There's the Master battles back against his robotic programming. And he eventually does get in touch with the Doctor when he's on the verge of stealing the TARDIS. In fact, he does begin to. But then he makes contact with the Doctor once again and returns. But meanwhile, there's an awful lot going on as we meet Barak, who's the leader of the humans.
Yep.
And is planning to detonate an E-bomb to wipe out all the robots, which I'd assume is something like the Z-bomb from the 10th planet that General Cutler has to destroy the Cybermen or Mondas. And basically it's going to wipe out all the robots.
Yeah, I mean, not to go into too much depth, I was assuming that was an electromagnetic bomb.
Yeah, firing out an EMP.
Yeah, and you just make sure it's pointing in the right direction so you don't fry your own equipment. It's a pretty non-discriminating form of destroying electronics.
Yeah. Well, for those who are wondering what it is, go and watch GoldenEye, the Bond film, and you'll find out what an EMP is.
Well, and you'll find out what they thought it was, but yeah.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much similar to what they have in Blood of the Robots.
Yeah, basically, it's a huge pulse of energy, and anything that is on chips, whatever, will fry.
Yes. That's a very good summing up. Once again, Stevie, you make the complex very simple.
I try my best.
Well done, techno, bloody techno head. But yes, we then get into the final part, and we've got the Doctor being dazed. We open with him, and we discover there's some ancients on planet Varada, and they're pretty much building up towards. We think that there's not a lot of hope there until the ancient robots appear and things start to move on at quite some pace.
Yeah, I mean it's. I'd like to have seen how that would have been developed, because I think that's it starts to get a bit complex there in the breakdown, and I'm sure there would have been. I don't know if you think so. I think there have been changes probably made there because it could get quite busy with lots of robots talking to robots.
Yeah.
I felt, but it's playing into that thing of, well, the ancients, the ones that came before us, the ones that knew, let's get some help.
And there's the Spartacus moment.
Yes.
Where the robots are not saying, I'm Spartacus. No, we get, I'm the Doctor. No, yeah. I am the Doctor. Don't listen to him. I am the Doctor. I am the Doctor, and so on. And it's rather nice. And then ultimately he does reveal himself as they go towards encountering Barack and trying to get to the resolution where Alison has been captured in the way that companions would be, and is being threatened by Barack, who's going to kill poor Alison.
Yep.
But then, Stevie, on you go. This is a bit I know you've been waiting for.
Well, there's the ultimate ascension, isn't there? Of I think I've got this right. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But basically, the humanized robots begin to ascend to a different plane. I'm assuming a plane of pure energy and thought. Oh, wait a minute! Bit like the black hole with Vincent and Bob. So they're all there somewhere, but they're just not there in their physical form. But of course, you're left with Barack, who sees all the lifeless robot shells left behind, and she's not elevated to robot heaven, and the conveyor just moves along to chomp up all the bits, and she says, "I'm not a robot." Eek.
I am human.
Yeah, that's the thing in nightmares, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. I'm getting it sort of imagery from Metropolis here as well, with the Maria robot.
Yep, and again, we look at Doctor Who has been full of goodies and baddies. That's its trope. But this is another one of these that you start to feel sorry for. It brings you back to the AI stuff. Who are we? What are we? What if you're left? What if you've chosen the wrong side? What if everyone leaves? So it's quite I found it quite a lonely ending, despite what the character's done previously.
Yep.
Because you could say, well, ends justify the means and just desserts, etc. But actually it hit me quite hard, that one.
It is. Spoilers, people. Interior recycling unit. Cut to a close-up of Barack, complete with unhinged face hanging askew. She groans weakly, "I am not a robot. I am not a robot." Pull out. We see she lies on a conveyor belt that moves slowly, remorselessly, to a recycling hopper. Slowly, the camera rises directly above her, so Barack recedes, and we see that hundreds of other lifeless robots lie end to end in the conveyor. She is the only one not to be elevated to robo-heaven. The conveyor moves remorselessly. "Please, I'm not a robot." Barack is bound for robo-hell. That is really powerful stuff, isn't it?
Really powerful. And of course, not that it's written there, end credits.
Yes.
That is your end. I always say to everyone when they're shooting everything, never end in a laugh. Okay, because there's nothing worse. There'd be nothing worse if it got it the other way around and they'd done the gag about the wine and everyone had laughed. And that was.
Have you ever tried a Martian Merlot? And then they'll laugh, click their glasses, American sitcom style.
Hate it.
Yeah.
Not everything should end remorselessly and sad, but sometimes you want to make a point. And this makes the point. And again, flash animation, I can see the scale being built there and pulling out with hundreds, thousands, millions of little robot bodies left.
Yes, absolutely. It's very. I think Simon did a brilliant job with that, building up to that, and his horror writer roots absolutely show there, because that is just horrific. Somebody effectively dying on their own.
Yes,
and that's the worst thing I could possibly imagine, and just
regardless of what went on before.
Yep.
It's and all it needs. And that sounds terrible. All it needs is that last paragraph. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of work gone into that last paragraph.
Yes. That's been written and rewritten and sharpened and sharpened.
Yeah.
Because it's very, even just reading it there, it's like, woof. Reading it aloud actually compared to reading it in my head.
Yeah.
And it's quite some impact.
I mean, if we were to do an animation, Kenny, that we both obviously have the time to do, that is the end sequence you do. Because we can't afford to do humans, we would just do the Doctor saying what he says, TARDIS dematerializing, and then cut into that bit.
Yeah.
That could be a powerful 60 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. You can just see, as I say, the slow-moving conveyor, robots on there, and you just have got the face that we've seen throughout the story of the map partly falling open in the way that the Master's face did.
Yes.
With the Shalka.
Yep.
And the more I read it, I just think it is such a shame that more wasn't done with this, because this would have been a fantastic novel. Obviously, Simon's an acclaimed horror writer.
Yep.
And his audio of The Night of the Triffids, a great listen, available still from Big Finish. It's got Nicola Bryant in it, so please do consider it if you've not heard it. Give it a go. It's brilliant. It really, really is. But yeah, it's such a shame that more hasn't been done, or such a shame that anything hasn't been done with this.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe one day, maybe someone might pick it up.
Who knows? It would be lovely if there were. Must say a huge thank you to Stuart Douglas and the team over at the Black Archive and Obverse Books for sending this over. I didn't actually have a copy of it, and you can still get Scream of the Shalka from the Obverse Books website, www.obverse.co.uk/product/10-Shalka, and one more backslash there. So you can get it there, and it's available in paperback and digital formats. So it's priced between £3.99 and £8.99, and it's 130 pages with a fascinating insight into Scream of the Shalka and indeed the full outline for Blood of the Robot. So if you've enjoyed what we've discussed, please do consider picking up a copy of the book. And thanks again to Stuart and the team.
Yes, thank you. I would like to say a personal thank you, because I without doing this podcast, I would not have seen this, and I would have missed out.
Yeah,
I really would have done that. This is going to stay with me.
Yeah, I think I'll be actually. I've got a PDF, but I prefer real books, so I think I'll be ordering a copy of this when I get paid today.
Yay!
When this episode goes out, so roll on the last Thursday of the month. No, you're not getting my bank details, listeners. Stevie already has them. It's fine.
Yes, and I'm ordering things as we speak. And what?
Yeah, orange Daleks and so on. Yes.
Just when you were mentioning, listening to the interview, and you were talking about various things, and I'm hoping this stays in the edit. But you were talking about the episode you missed. The first episode of Castrovalva.
Yes.
So I hope you enjoy. For our YouTube viewers, I've just put a still up of the first episode of Castrovalva of Nissa, Tegan, Adric, and good old Peter lying there in a hayfield somewhere, just so you can relive those days, Kenny.
Yeah, it's very kind of you to do that. So my 7-year-old self's trauma, in fact, not even 7-year-old self's trauma, has been completely relived.
I often did wonder what a zero room looked like until years later when I actually saw it, because I just had the audio recordings.
Of course, pinkish grey,
and a cabinet. Ooh, sonic screwdriver. Assemble a cabinet. Maybe that's where that came from. Not just any old cabinet assembly.
Yeah, a sonic cabinet, screwdriver, zero. Yeah, it's all there. Christopher H. Bidmead, he knew he was talking about real science, kids. Probably. But yeah, I think Blood of the Robots is something that would have built on the introduction to this Doctor. Reading it, he's a lot more likeable throughout, given that, as we said last week, he's coming from a dark place at the start of Scream of the Shalka. Yep. And by the time we get to the end, he's far happier. He's over his gloom and misery, and he's somebody who's looking forward to spending time and showing off to, very much starting off with his wine collection, which is something that's very, I can imagine the third Doctor doing that, especially
with his cheese collection as well.
Of course, yes. Here's my vintage camemberts. You can smell the room from halfway around the TARDIS.
Do you know, I can still remember that scene in Day of the Daleks from reading it in the book, and it always made me feel hungry. I always loved cheese, didn't like wine, but always loved cheese. Always made me feel hungry. I always had to go off and raid the fridge.
Yeah, I love that line, and I think it's Day of the Moon, it's Impossible Astronaut, when the Doctor drinks wine and spits out and goes, disgusting, tastes nothing like wine gums. I've used that line a few times.
Yes, I thought it tastes more like the gums. I think that's just a brilliant line.
Yeah, I love wine gums. Always my sweet of choice for a long distance journey, but I do make sure I brush my teeth at the other end very quickly. So, yes.
Thanks for that information, Kenny.
Mm-hmm. So, any other thoughts, Stevie?
Yeah, my thoughts on actually going on from this are, I wonder what we would get if we'd had another 2 stories, or another 3 stories, another 4 stories. It would be nice to have seen where that Doctor had gone. It's maybe too late, but again, if someone were to pick it up one day, and Richard E. was up for it and the others were up for it, then I think it would be a great discovery, and maybe get some of the original writers and those who were doing involved, because I think there's a wee gold mine there to be explored.
Yep, this would have been directed by John Ainsworth, who's now one of the senior producers at Big Finish, and a friend of the podcast. In fact, he's due on very soon to discuss one of the Doctor Who Unbound stories, and looking forward to that one. That was recorded a few weeks ago, so he'll be with us before too long. But yeah, it'd be fantastic. I mean, given that Richard E. has been canonised, then wouldn't it be quite fun to have this almost as a range of, so even one a year from Big Finish? I'd love it.
It would be brilliant, and I think there'd be a market for it, and amongst his fans as well. And I don't think there's anything wrong that he was the Great Intelligence, because actors have played lots of stuff in Doctor Who, and I think he has a very unique delivery for the Doctor, and a nice character. So yeah, it would just be lovely to see where it would go.
Absolutely. We can but dream. So there we go. Stevie, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kenny. That's been another great one. As I say, can't speak highly enough about these. It's been a really good chat, a really good development, I think.
Yeah, I think we'll have to have a look at the Feast of the Stone at some point as well, and maybe see if either of the authors might be up for a wee natter about that one as well.
Yeah, no, that would be good.
So that'll give us 3 stories with this Doctor. That's the only 3 that we know to exist, so yeah.
That we know to exist.
Indeed. Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows, Kenny?
Yes, absolutely. We're both doing that Tom Baker thing there.
Always be doing that Tom Baker thing. That's another phrase that goes across our household is, I think you might be right. I think that's what he says.
Yep. Yeah, so it's just whenever I hear the word Shada, I just want to go, Shada! But that's probably just me as well. But
just talking about series lost, series gained. But I read about Fugitive Doctor.
Yes, indeed. That's coming soon, a new BBC spin-off range.
That's quite exciting. I mean, I'm not saying it ties in directly with what we're looking at here, but again, it's another development of another Doctor that didn't get more than one official episode. I mean, apart from trotting in now and again for bits and pieces, but I was quite excited about that.
Yeah, Circuit Breaker.
Yeah.
Dangerous artifacts are appearing in the Black Archive. Unit needs help. Unit needs the Doctor. Joe Martin returns as the fugitive Doctor in Circuit Breaker. A new exciting adventure told across books, audio, comics, and more. Well, I think this is the 3rd in this series of things. We've had Time Lord Victorious, and then we had Doomsday. So Time Lord Victorious was probably more of a success than Doomsday appeared to be, going by online fan reactions, but a lot of people didn't follow it. And there was also something planned ahead of Doomsday, which was formulated by Esme Jackimi Pearson, who told us that on the podcast when she was discussing her novelisation of The Church on Ruby Road, and that never came to be. So quite how this works out, I don't know if this is that project given a new lease of life. We'll have to find out. Esme, you know where we are. We're coming to get you.
Yay!
And she was lovely when we spoke to her, so yeah, I'll have to get her back on and find out more.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes, and whether, ideally, to my mind, this is something that should have perhaps the opening episodes on audio, then you have a Titan comic strip, then you have a book, then you have a DWM comic strip, and then you repeat that cycle and do the 4 again. So it's a nice simple one that builds up without having to be too complex.
Yep.
Maybe you could throw in a BBC like vinyl audio story, something like that, and download release. So yeah, you can maybe make it like 10 parts. You've got that cycle of 5 and then repeat it again.
Yeah.
And then that gives you the story so it's not spread out too far. 1 episode a month in whatever medium it is, and that way you know where you're going. And that'll help cover the lack of a series apparently for next year.
I think it would be good if it was like that, because I wasn't sure where to start with Time Lord Victorious. and I kind of lost Doomsday a little bit. But I think because it didn't feature the Doctor as such, or a Doctor as such, I think that's where it kind of lost me. But it would be nice to know just where I'm heading to each one, so I can choose what to pick up, where to pick up.
Yeah, and the fact that we have got a defined Doctor in it, somebody who we know, Joe Martin.
Yep.
And so you've got somebody who will appeal to the new series fans. So yes, it'll be interesting. It's an interesting choice.
Yep.
And somebody who's definitely popular with a lot of fans. So yeah, we could see where that goes.
Yep.
But yes, I think when it does begin, I think we should follow it as closely as we can, and then we can build up the full story. I think that might be interesting to do if we follow it from the very beginning. So
yep.
We shall see. We shall see. There we go. Stevie, thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. I am human. I'm human.
You are not half human on your mother's side.
No, definitely not. That would be most illogical.
Indeed. And remember, if you want to follow us on social media, we are at Power of 3 Pod with a number 3 on Twitter. We have a Facebook page where you can come in and see bonus content, and sometimes we'll share pictures, not screenshots, or indeed our videos. You'll need to pay us a lot of money for those, or you can just find them on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, YouTube channel.
And I also have a personal Blue Sky account whose name I nearly forgot there. That's because I'm tired and it's been a long day. And yeah, you can find us on there at Finished Zine. So there we go. That's us. Now, Stevie, the end is nigh.
It is.
But I have thought actually of a banger of a track from the 70s that we could play out with. You might have heard of this one, actually.
Okay. There's always a chance. Listeners, my musical knowledge is very limited.
Stevie, where do you stand on 1970s German electropop?
Far away from the speakers, but not too far away. Not to hear it, but not too close to be deafened.
Okay, well, I was thinking we could go with Kraftwerk's The Robots, because you can't go wrong with a bit of Kraftwerk.
I have heard of that one. I think that would be okay.
They are the robots. Do, 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 do. It sounds a lot better than that. I think we should let them sing it and not me.
Kenny, we love you dearly. Play Kraftwerk.
Thanks, Stevie. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll be back very soon.
Thanks, guys. Bye.